Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar sponsored by Medallia today, the future of behavioral intelligence, improving CX with dynamic data. I'm Dominic Castro. I'm the editor-in-chief of CMSwire.com, your host today, and I will be the moderator. So we're thrilled to have a powerhouse panel of experts. That's kind of a lie. I'm not entirely thrilled because I have to figure out a way to get these people to speak equally. You're going to have like timing after and kind of judge me like they do in political debates. But I am going to do my very best. These people can talk, and they can talk a good CX game and EX game too. They're going to share insights on how to leverage dynamic data and how that's kind of revolutionizing customer employee experiences. So before we dive in, just a quick reminder of our breakdown today. We'll get into the heart of the show, of course, in a minute, but time permitting, we're going to allow some questions. So feel free to use that Q&A right at the top right. You can use the chat. Just ask a question. We'll get it filtered, and we'll do our best to save a few moments at the end there to get to some burning questions that you have. So you can ask them at any time. You don't have to wait till the end of the show or anything like that. And that chat function, you're already saying hi. We say hi to you. Thanks for joining us. CMS Wire, by the way, I'm the editor-in-chief of that site. I've been here for 10 plus years, cmswire.com, covering all things customer experience. So Medallia is a perfect partner for this. And speaking of Medallia, they're sitting at the heart of customer and employee experience management. Joining us, we have a Medallia rep today, Michael Millett, VP of Product Management at Medallia. Maybe do a little wave, Michael. How's that? Okay, there you go. So you'll have a chance to connect with him, me actually too, and Jeannie Walters, who's on the call today. We'll be at Medallia Experience next month in Vegas, having lots of fun and I guess learning a thing or two about CX and EX and where that intersects. But this is the Medallia annual customer event. You'll get the chance to connect with all these great brands, hear from great speakers like Jeannie. I'll be listening. I'm going to be fair, Jeannie, but critical. So if you say something that I don't agree with, I'm writing on it about it at cmswire.com. So be ready, okay?
I'm ready.
Okay. Same for you, Michael. The awesome folks at Medallia, they were able to secure you a nice discount code for a registration fee. So they'd love you to join that conference if you're a webinar attendee here, and make sure you register for that great event. And you'll get some more details about that code and the link and where to go and follow-up communication. So stay tuned for that. And our speakers, just to save time to get everybody's insights in throughout the next hour or so, you can take a look at them and their bios and their names and everything. But we got Sean, the aforementioned Jeannie, Toppy from McDonald's. So cool to have her. And my New England buddy, you might be able to guess that I'm from New England. Tom Wentworth, my pal. So we are sitting here sulking about the Patriots not being in the Super Bowl anymore, but we are excited to talk about CX. So, right, Tom?
Right, Dom.
All right. And we love the Ben Affleck Dunkin' Donuts commercial, by the way. To save time, so just look at their bios, and you can on your own time. So let's get into discussion, shall we? This is the moment. First, we're going to talk about discovering how behavioral intelligence and digital-first strategies are replacing that traditional feedback as the ultimate proxy for voice of the customer. We like to say VOC. Then we'll discuss how dynamic data can empower teams to enhance customer and employee experiences. Very good to have that CX, EX synergy. We talk about it all the time at CMS Wire. Next, we'll explore strategies for using behavioral intelligence to build loyalty and trust. And then we'll just delve into how organizations can use dynamic data to accelerate innovation and productivity. So topic number one, here we go. Behavioral intelligence and digital first strategy. So first question, I'm going to start with Michael on this one. How do you see behavioral intelligence and digital first strategies providing sort of like a more accurate and actionable representation of the voice of the customer compared to these traditional feedback methods? Michael, you're on.
You got it, Dom. So, we're no strangers to direct feedback collection. That's how Medallia got its start now 24 years ago. And you would think, in the digital channel, couldn't it be easier to actually provide that feedback? But believe it or not, 70% of digital experiences actually give you no direct feedback at all, according to our own research we just did this past December in 24. And actually, 22% are less likely to give that feedback if they had an issue in their experience and it wasn't resolved. So not only are they not providing feedback, they're not telling you feedback when you need it most. And if we compare that to what Gartner would say, by 2028, 70% of all data is going to be in product usage and analytics driven, not feedback. It's just very clear. It's time for programs to evolve and lead behavioral and activity first, and feedback when available, right? So there has to be a way, if we consider more people using mobile devices, the different types of new devices and engagement opportunities that are just going to happen, not only through the digital channel, but think about physical environments and all the data that's being thrown off by cars, or just as you're walking through a location or in a manufacturing floor. We've got to make sense of that activity data that's happening, or not. That counts as a signal too. And we need to be able to interpret all of that into how someone feels, whether they're a customer, employee, how operations are running, and what kind of business results are already happening or likely to happen. And since it's a much larger data set that can be as interpretable as feedback, I think it's going to be as representative, if not more representative, than feedback alone.
Yeah, sounds right. I mean, I think that customers are so tired of having the problem that they're not going to go ahead and make the second effort to tell you about the problem. So it's kind of difficult to measure with those traditional feedback methods for sure. I want to kick it over to Tom Wentworth. You're coming from the marketing leader advantage point here in this discussion. So where do you sit there being a chief marketing officer?
Yeah, I think, and no offense, Michael, I think surveys are too slow. You probably would agree with me on that one. Surveys are too slow. I think you can't get the kinds of insights that you want without modern ways to collect data and then modern ways to understand that data at scale. Obviously, I'm talking about using AI, which is a part of my minutely workflow at my current company. I'm in B2B SaaS. So I worry about things like, how quickly can I learn about my competitors? So I have a process every single day, or every time there's a call with a prospect at my company, Incident.io, and that call talks about one of our competitors, we extract out insights with AI. We publish those insights to a Slack channel in real time. And now my sellers have insights like right away that might have taken a month or a quarter in previous years. So I think whether it's B2B SaaS, like I'm in, B2C, it doesn't matter. Surveys don't work anymore. What works is collecting lots and lots of data at scale and having creative ways to harness it.
Yeah. And it sounds like, when Michael was mentioning the behavioral intelligence can jump in there and kind of help with that, if, versus those traditional methods, which there might be still a place for that, but behavioral intelligence and those digital first strategies seem to be taking over a bit for some organizations for sure. Jeannie, we talk a lot about surveys, you and I, in the past, how to get it right and just what's the sweet spot, what's a good target response rate. There's so much that goes into it, just trying to get the voice of the customer. So when behavioral intelligence and all this comes into the picture now, where are you sitting with, you're working with some pretty impressive organizations out there?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I've always believed that there's no one magic number. There's no one magic survey. Like, humans are really complex. And so we say a lot and then we behave totally differently. And I always like to come back to, why are we doing this? Like, why are we collecting the feedback? What do we want to know? And what will that do for organizations? And you think about something like, let's take a fitness center. If they said on December 25th, right, they said, what are your goals next year? How often are you going to join us at the gym? People would tell them, oh, I'm going to be there 5 days a week. I'm so committed. And if we based decisions on like that type of information solely, well, we would build bigger gyms and we would have all the furniture or all the equipment and invest in the wrong things, because guess what? People are not going to do that, even though that's what they think they're going to do. So I think it's constantly a balance of not just behavioral, analytics and all the amazing things that we have now, because now we can tell, like, how often are they actually scanning into the gym? That gives us information about their behavior. So what does that tell us about, what they want next? That we know that there's a crowd around this one machine because that's what everybody wants to use. So I think when you come back to the why of things, then you see the need for, yes, we need to listen to the feedback, and there's still a place for that because people will tell you things that they want in the future. And you want to look at behavior and you want to look at operations. And you really just, the amazing thing about AI and some of the tools out there now is that it can put it all together in real time and give us those insights that we're looking for. But coming back to the why, I think is really important.
Yeah, great point about having all that data about what they actually do at the gym. You know, when you have that data, that's better than what they say they're going to do. Like you mentioned, it's kind of like reminds me of my marriage. I mean, I say a lot of things, I don't follow up, and she calls me out on it. So I get it. Behavioral intelligence is my worst enemy in my marriage for sure. But Sean, where are you coming in? You know, you're working with a lot of orgs. You were at a high level financial services industry practitioner before that. So you come in from all these vantage points of being a practitioner, now a consultant for some huge brands. Behavioral intelligence, traditional feedback surveys. Where do you sit? Where's the balance there?
I think what's amazing is the dichotomy of what is now when it comes to, you know, customer experience. Because echoing what the others have said, it's about what they do. I mean, we can track every click. We can track the words they use in real time on the phone call or chatting or et cetera. There's so much ripe and rich data there to use. And our opportunity is to do that because survey fatigue is real. Now, I don't think surveys are dead. I think surveys will change because I think all that data is great, but you want to validate some of the data. And in fact, I think the more technology and capability we put that empowers us to get all of the data, the more we actually need to go back to the even older school, have conversations, like literal market research and brand research and conversations with customers. And that's why I always really echo, and Dom, you mentioned my post last week, we did journey mapping. And you can't do journey mapping without having conversations. Now, the whole point of that is if you got the data, now those conversations are even richer to say, hey, we're seeing in the data this and that. How do what's your interpretation of that? And it really allows for a richer conversation so that the quant, all this massive amount of quant on what people are doing, we actually can go back and get even better qual to go with it, qualitative content. And it bridges that gap because, again, same kind of thing in what we're doing with changing experiences using technology. You know, in a lot of ways, the more technology we throw at people, the more they're going to want that human connection. And that's going to be a way that a lot of companies I work with and advise say, make sure you're having, an equal amount of conversation. Don't take all that data just and use it without some level of discussion and validation. If nothing else, it gets you closer to that human, which is your customer. And that's what we all have to do in our business is ultimately serve them in a way they want to be served. Data will show what they're going to do, how they act, how they behave, potentially even what they say, but you still want to understand who they are and what their needs are.
And Toppy, you have a massive role at McDonald's being the Global Director of Organization Effectiveness Design. So what's top of mind for you is employee experience, 100%, and making those experiences great. So from an EX perspective, employee experience, where you coming in with getting that behavioral data in your own organization and kind of balancing that with maybe traditional employee surveys and those kind of methods?
Thank you for the question, Dom. And what I would say is, while we know behavioral intelligence and digital first strategies, if we think about this space, while it may not directly help you with your marriage, I do think indirectly understanding a little bit more about our preferences and why we do what we do when we're not able to truly articulate what we truly want. I see the application in our personal lives and in our professional lives. And as I think about the evolution, so I sit within the organizational design and effectiveness team. And a big focus for us next year is leading into our listening platforms for our employees, for all of our employees, from everybody who works in our head office to our employees who are based in our restaurants and everybody along that employee life cycle and that journey. And the goal here is that this will help us really understand what people truly want, capture that real-time data-driven insights in the moment rather than this like reflective or retrospective analysis. I think I heard that come across in some of the other comments from some of the other panelists as well. So really it will help us, it will enable us to personalize our experiences at scale and give us the opportunity to adjust in the moment as well. So it's a very exciting time for McDonald's.
You got to undercover boss it. You know, you ever seen that show, Top? The Undercover Boss. They go out, the CEO comes in, he works at a restaurant, he finds all the quirks, right? He finds out everything that's wrong. That's data. That's information. You're getting it front and center.
At
At
scale.
scale
The role
from
of
what
the
they do.
individual has to be there.
Everyone cries at the end. There's like a $10,000 scholarship. It's all good. It's all good. All right, that was topic one. So let's move on, shall we? Topic number two, now empowering teams with dynamic data. You know, so we're examining here the types of data that can be used for actionable intelligence, types of predictive analytics, real-time simulations, advanced forecasting, not just raw data. So we're talking about what is replacing traditional feedback and what does behavioral intelligence look like? What does it mean? So continuing that along those lines, I'm going to stick with you, Toppy. So, you know, can you share sort of how your organization is using dynamic data to not only personalize customer interactions, which I know is not your wheelhouse, but you also want to empower employees with dynamic data. So you're coming at it from that EX perspective. So where do you sit with that, using dynamic data to just empower employees?
That's a fair question. And while my space, I specifically look at the design of McDonald's, so making sure that we have a design that enables us to achieve our strategy. Dynamic data is really helping us understand and transform how we can act on our employees' needs. So moving beyond raw data to real-life simulations, predictive analysis, and advanced forecasting. And within that space, I can imagine a world where our data pool is cleaner. I think a lot of companies, and not just McDonald's alone, can understand that the scale and the size and the speed of data being captured, we really need to make sure that we are making sure that our data pool is clean and being used in the most effective way. And at McDonald's, we're moving away from more traditional feedback methods like surveys and capturing in a single moment to this continuous behavioral driven intelligence that'll help us anticipate needs before our employees can even express them.
Can't go wrong with the vanilla ice cream cone. It's like a buck. It's just a nice little treat while you're driving to go get other food, right? You know, it's just amazing. I love it. Toppy, thanks for those insights. Let's move on to Jeannie. You know, what kind of trends are you observing in this arena with dynamic data, and how kind of behavioral intelligence is enhancing CX? Where are you seeing organizations have challenges, successes?
Yeah, well, just to kind of piggyback on what Toppy shared, when we think about customer experience, really, and we talk about it as if it's just this universal thing, but it can be defined so differently from one organization to the next. And really, it's about employees, right? It's about how can they deliver it? How do they have the right information in the right moment for that personalization? And so I think one of the things that I really love that I'm seeing right now is this trend towards real-time coaching for those frontline employees. So when people are able to, get information, a manager gets information based on, again, it could be a transactional text survey when somebody walks out of the store. It could also be coupled with the behavioral data that we've observed. It can, and then when they get a prompt saying, this is the third customer who has, said that they weren't happy about something. You can go to the employee and give real-time coaching so that it's not this thing, that abstract idea from a survey from last week from some customer you forgot. This is about real time. So I'm really excited about that trend because I think it also empowers people to do a better job instead of just being kind of this punitive, hey, we're going to tell you what you did wrong. And then the other thing I'm really excited about is this idea of how personalization means different things to every single person. And so when you see things like some of the airlines now are starting to realize like, well, maybe not everybody wants to get the same rewards, right? Like we might want to use our points differently. And so giving people options that they can tell like, hey, this person is a frequent traveler. Maybe we should give them lounge access, because they're somebody who would appreciate that. But this person uses their credit card, so let's give them groceries, right? So that's the other thing that I think is really cool about what's happening.
Yeah, we're seeing that too at CMS, where we think that AI in CX is where the biggest wins are happening right now, and especially for an agent experience. Like the agents are getting better because of AI. And they're not having those quarterly town meetings where they once in a while say, all right, everybody, everyone hates this product, get ready for it. That was like circa 2005. So it's that real-time data. And Michael, you know all about data. So how is this type of data that you've seen, from Medallia customers, from the industry at large, how is these data truly empowering these teams specifically?
Well, I'm really glad that we're really hitting on one of the key points we're passionate about over here, that if you want to drive company transformation and external value as a brand, internal transformation and employee activation is one of the best ways to go about this. So a lot of the demand we are starting to see both from us and technology vendors in the space, it's a couple of key application use cases where we're getting a lot of interest around pattern recognition, based on the behaviors that you're tracking or the operational activities that are happening. Can you create kind of this one-to-many alert flagging that, hey, this is something that's going wrong? The classic use case would be, if the digital channel were to fail you, what are you going to do next? You're going to call someone or chat with someone for help because you weren't able to do this on your own. So that is a pattern, and how that you can flag that as a journey opportunity, whether it's a smart kind of alert, some kind of a score deviation. How can you do that dynamically without even having to preset it? Because people are just talking about it. So using natural language processing to actually start to flag that. So we're getting a lot of demand around that. But we also talked a little bit about the coaching use case that Jeannie brought up as well. That, to me, talks a lot about action modeling, recommendation modeling, prediction modeling. We're seeing a lot more of it already. And obviously, we're talking about some use cases at Experience 2025, where we're connecting those smart, intelligent summaries, as well as just flagging at, here's your opportunity, but also connecting it to a solution that can drive action. Dom, you actually brought up agents. I was going to go there last. Agents now, right? We're not just empowering employees with just summaries. We are actually fetching them the insight, triggering a workflow for them, and waiting for the last review and push the button go mile for them, but still giving the employee the opportunity to further personalize the experience for another employee or for a customer. And I think that's just the great acceleration of what productivity and innovation could be. And so a lot of pattern recognition, a lot of dynamic data, and putting AI and the employee side by side, it's a really exciting time, I think, in the space.
Tom, from the marketing leader's viewpoint, data obviously is a big part of your job, and you want to personalize experiences. I think when it comes to also empowering your own teams, your own marketing teams, are you using data in that way to help your marketing teams be more successful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's more interesting, or I'm seeing more innovation on that side than I'm seeing on the customer experience side. We've been talking about personalization and customer experience for 20 years. I think the technology is better today than it was 20 years ago, but we've never been able to provide our employees with as much agentic. By the way, I hate the word agentic. Love McDonald's, by the way, N of one, but McDonald's fantastic. Hate the word agentic with passion. But providing agentic apps. So like, here's a real story. I support a sales team at Incident.io. And one of the things that we want to do is track when our competitors have their renewals up, right? You buy software, you renew it every year. So what you have to do as a seller is you have to go put a number in Salesforce, and no one remembers to do it. It never happens. So you have this database that's empty, and I can never report the way I want to. So I built an agent this morning in 20 minutes, literally 20 minutes, that listens to a sales call. If the prospect talks about their renewal date with our competitor, pulls that out and writes it into Salesforce. it's a dumb, silly little thing, but in 20 minutes now, I have a data point that used to be annoyingly difficult to put into Salesforce, now is automated. Somebody in my team said, Tom, you should build an army of agents. And that's what we need to do, is an army of agents that solve little problems that all individually aren't that big of a deal, but collectively provide a much better employee experience. So agent is the right word. Just don't ever say the word agentic. I can't.
Yeah, who made that one up? I got to remember though that Tom, it's a trigger word for Tom, so I can bother him on Facebook maybe about that later tonight. So he'll do a red mean face if I do that. Sean, let's close out this section. We were talking about contact center agents and empowering them. What that's near and dear to your heart. You came from that world. That's what you wanted to do day after day, and now you're doing it for orgs. So, like, where do you come in with using data, dynamic data, to empower your agents or anybody in the organization?
Well, I think everybody's answered a lot of the different ways it can be done. Let me add a few components here too, though. It says, it's also, traditionally the call center, right, is where it's easier to do because you're recording the call, you can track things in real time, pop it, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm actually seeing, and again, I working with some banks and financial institutions where they're doing that for live interactions at the branch. The ability, now the technology are with permission recording, and you're evaluating and you're providing the kind of coaching to the teller, even if you will, on that conversation and using those tools to coach them as well. So it's not just limited in these days. This is where the explosion of what we're going to be capable of doing is going to take us. I was on a panel the summer before ChatGPT launched, and they asked the softball closing question, what do you see the future of contact centers being in 5 years? And I said, well, I think, one of the biggest challenges in most contact centers is a lot of really great, empathetic people can't manage 15 different systems at the same time. They don't have that skill set, but they are great with people, and they don't make it in the contact center. I said, the reality is the conversation you're having, the tools are going to do all the work. It's going to use the live data and say, if I want to buy 10,000 shares of Apple, and it's going to plug in 10,000 shares, and it's going to provide the notes like it is today. And this was back before ChatGPT, and we're already almost there. And it is becoming such an incredible opportunity for us. But you also have to mirror that or manage that with this expectation of relationship. I kind of said it a little bit earlier, and that's that opportunity that never will go away. People want to talk to people. I know if I have a problem, I do not want a chatbot. I don't want anything like that, but I want that agent to have the tools to make them the best possible so that they can really be empathetic with me. And so it's that bridging that all this data and the human component comes together in an effective platform. And it's only done when the data is integrated, which is pretty much everybody's bigger problem right now. But AI is helping overcome that as well, bringing all these different data points from all these different sources and intelligently leveraging it and using it for purpose, and that purpose being the customer and their experience.
Jeannie, I actually want to close out the conversation with you. This not the conversation. We're not done yet. This section. Are we doing well? When I say we, I mean organizations, CX leaders, contact center VPs. Are we doing well? We're doing well leveraging data to help the agents. Are we doing well enough to get data from the agents to empower their own experience? In other words, actually taking feedback from the agents themselves and baking that in, because they are just a wealth of data with the interactions they have. Are we doing that enough?
The short answer is no, we're not doing that enough. But the longer answer is that we've always had a problem, I think, with CX leadership and just leadership in general, kind of discounting the power of what those people do and know, and including them in things like decision making around the customer journey. And now I think AI and all the tools that we've mentioned so far, it's making it so much easier. I think about the tools I use even in my AI robot recordings of my meetings, and it gives me a little summary. Like, there are tools like that for agents. So they're not trying to hunt around for, well, which category should this be in? They called in, they had a problem with the login. Is that a login problem? Is that a technology problem? And it just gets really messy very quickly. And then to Sean's point about the banks and the real time, we're seeing this in healthcare too. You know, we train doctors as scientists, and then we wonder why they don't have good bedside manner. And now people are really going to, they're prioritizing patient experience. So now they're using AI to record the doctor side of the conversation and give feedback to say, hey, you did not do great on breaking that bad news or whatever it is. And again, it's that real time in the moment coaching that I think is really cool. But I think you are absolutely right that the people who are dealing directly with the customers, they have so much to tell us, but we need to include them in the conversation.
We have a patient experience officer coming up on one of our CMSY TV shows, and she tells us that physicians just love getting feedback. They take it constructively, and they are just totally open books. So that's interesting to have AI help that situation and tell them, you might need to kind of tone it down a little bit in those patient exchanges when they're sick. Great points there. Topic 3, we're about halfway through, gang, so we're making it. We're doing well. Let's talk about how you can build loyalty, customer loyalty, employee loyalty, whatever. However, when Toby comes into the mix, it will be about employees being loyal. But through behavioral intelligence, building loyalty. So how can data analytics turn into actionable intelligence that actually truly build loyalty and engagement with customers and employees alike? How about we go with Tom on this one to start?
Dom, let me give you another real example. So I think loyalty is built on small moments. Every single time I've been to a McDonald's in my life and I get French fries, huge French fry fan of McDonald's, they are the same. If I'm in Boston, New York, Tokyo, Sao Paulo, doesn't matter, right? So the McDonald's brand has built as one of its tenets, like, I'm going to get great quality food no matter where I am in the world. That's why I think, having consistency is the most important thing. It's small moments. I think AI, again, is the perfect way to understand these micro frictions. Like, it's never something big that causes us to abandon a brand. It's lots and lots of small things. It's rage clicks, it's hesitations, abandoned journeys. AI lets you get those frustrations early so you can figure them out before they become these widespread problems. I think AI also helps you understand the complex journey where it isn't just, I don't just go to a McDonald's branch, I'm going to websites, apps, chat, in-store. Understanding the complexities of feedback across all those channels and how they work together is something that was really difficult to do 10 years ago and is now reasonably trivial to do today. So I think that understanding what's happening in the moment is something that we can do now uniquely with data. And I'm looking forward to a future where I don't have to spend weeks and months analyzing things that I now can get in essentially real time.
By the way, you guys checking out this chat on this show? There's a lively chat going on. Things are resonating, and they're bringing up some better points than us. I love it. I love how active they are. Good job, everybody. And again, the Q&A tab, we'll try to get to as many questions at the end there, save a few minutes. But hey, if you're going to talk with each other and figure it out on your own, that's cool. You don't need us. Sean, where do you come in with this? So let's talk about behavioral intelligence and how it actually can foster that deep trust, with customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the key there is you've got to have a purpose. Anything you're measuring in customer experience, you have to have a purpose of why you're measuring. It's one of the reasons I'm never really been a fan of customer satisfaction, because that doesn't mean a lot of things. Loyalty, though, that's where it sits, right? You're driving to brand loyalty, to company loyalty in an age where there is very little loyalty in many cases across the board. But so I did a study last year, my company with a company on research, we did a study of the state of CX and really the influence of customer experience of brand loyalty. Now, I have always been talking about, since I read the book in 2013, The Effortless Experience by Matt Dixon, a friend of mine, and several of those guys, that customer effort predicts loyalty. In their data they showed. If someone was hard to do, someone was 4 times more likely to be disloyal. When I was running it on my corporate role about 3 or 4 years ago, it was 7%. They were 7 times more likely. Again, hard, more likely to be disloyal by 7 times. Last year's statistic, if a customer had an issue that they said was really hard to resolve, 13 times more likely to be disloyal. There is nothing more actionable than the data showing you and turning that into, we need to make these things easier because the customers have said they're hard. And that's been one of those big challenges a lot of times, whether it's net promoter score and, well, how do we drive up greater loyalty? It really, in my research, it comes down to effort. You've got to be easy, because Amazon is running it for the rest of us. They've made things so easy, and other companies are following suit. And I know we're going to talk a little bit later about, some of the other components of this new age of making things easy. But if any of you are not yet really on this measuring effort bandwagon, please do, because this is where we're seeing the biggest results. And companies that are embracing that are able to work across the organizations to make these things easier, because usually what this data shows you is it's the space in between the channels that are the hardest. The things that cause me to go from the website to try to chat and then to call, etc. That space in between. And if you're not actively pursuing that in that cross-channel journey for your customers, you may not be finding those biggest pain points that are creating the disloyalty for your customers.
Love it. Love these comments that are coming in. One's building customer loyalty. They get testimonials, positioning customers as experts, building their credibility via public-facing videos. That's magical. You can get that. The real loyal customers sharing their tales for sure. Michael, let's bring this home with you. What are you seeing out there in terms of building loyalty using things like behavioral intelligence? Is it possible to connect the two?
I mean, it is, Dom. And I think Sean and Tom are really hitting on really juicy topics that I think relate to the chat about journey alignment, personalization, and also loyalty. Sean, we recently ran data that said 1 in 10 will actually leave a brand forever, any channel, if based on a bad experience. And I was shocked that the stat in the digital channel was actually 1 in 2. So it's worse. We're even more punishing. And the digital channel isn't normally thought as one of a place where you can even nurture and create that kind of a relationship. I know Tom, as a marketing man, the techniques and the technology exists to create it. But normally the digital channel is a cold, transactional, and either easy or not easy place, right, Sean? So, yeah. But that's just, I feel like everyone is trying to signal. Customers and employees are just trying to signal the whole know me, understand me, deliver for me movement. So on the Medallia side of the house, lots of different collection mechanics, either we directly offer or of course bring that data in. But I think the magic comes down into a lot of the AI applications, the centralized intelligence layer and platform layer that we're all kind of talking about, where whether it's rules-based, machine learning, prescriptive AI, predictive AI, generative, right? You have to be able to make sense of the data. You have to be able to tag it to say, this is the classification of what this experience issue is. You have to be able to extract whether they solved the actual issue they raised in the chat or on the call. If it's feedback, maybe it's feedback, Topi, from an employee who's using a new application that you helped launch, that's AI powered. Did it help the employee or not? And why, right? And that's where some of the text data comes in. So whether it's conversational behavior, the more that we can structure it, the more that we can align it to a journey, and the more I think we've all talked about it, we can align it to the business impact, good, bad, or indifferent, we can actually really drive a significant amount of change. So over on Medallia, that's what we're up to. We're trying to bring it together to a journey visual, a profile, a narrative across time. And I think one of the commenters there was how to connect that to personalization. If you can organize this data in a structured way, you can actually then extract it and start to trigger workflows to enable the coaching, enable the personalized web page, or, just change an internal process, right? We have a customer, one of our telecommunication customers, that we're driving on average, I think 50 million plus different activities a day across their customer base, and around 10 million live next best conversations a day. And that's just how the world works. So the smarter we can make the data coming in, going out, the more personal this can get for everyone involved.
Yeah. Let's go to Toppy and talk about this from an employee standpoint. I mean, we're talking about loyalty. I'm sure you use terms like turnover rate, employee satisfaction, things like that. That's your world, and that's what you care about probably. So, where does using behavioral intelligence, dynamic data come into when you want to look at things like employee loyalty?
Yeah. And may I answer it from two different angles? I think data is only as good as what you actually do with it. It's not data that drives the loyalty. It's actually what you're able to glean from the data. And I recognize that I really love this conversation around omni-channel engagement specifically, because for me, it helps to drive that employee loyalty within McDonald's, and actually within any organizations it would be employed within. Point one, I would say, is that it enables this consistency across multiple channels, where there are various different platforms. I mean, I'm sure now we are all using one tool here, but there may be Teams, Zoom, Slack, Skype, all of these different platforms that exist. And then we have our own corporate homepages, and then we may have our own individual company platform, individual team platforms and channels. And it really enables that consistency for communication across all of the multiple different channels. I also had some comments around like hyper personalization. I think when we move towards a more data-driven omnichannel engagement strategy, it allows us to really personalize and tailor things to focus on the employee experience, whether it is around training, whether it's on feedback, recognition. You meet the person in the way that they want to be met in that moment. I remember my brother was talking to me about the golden rule of engagement, and it's not about you treating somebody how you want to be treated. You meet the person in exactly the way that they want to be met, and you can achieve that at scale. And then finally, it's the ability to provide that real-time feedback and recognition. Michael, I heard you talk about this as well. Does the tool deliver what the employee expects it to deliver, whether it's good, bad, or ugly? It's just objective facts and truths. So that real-time feedback, recognition, and then the ability to pivot and tailor your message to, also really understanding what the individual is responding to. And it's that flexibility and that accessibility that I really think is one of the greatest strengths.
100%. Tom, have you ever tried the asking for no salt on the fries trick at McDonald's?
What is
No,
this trick?
I like extra salt, to be honest with you.
Okay, but Toppy, have you?
I don't know what this no salt trick is.
Someone told me that if you ask for no salt, they give you a fresh batch of fries and you put your own salt on it. Boom.
Ooh, that's a good
Done.
idea.
So I'm going to try that. I will let you all know. We have a McDonald's at the bottom of the head office. I will try that on my way home or for my lunch, and I will confirm or deny that truth.
Report back. Medallion will put it in the follow-up materials. And here's a link to the no salt trick mentioned. All right.
I'm hearing people saying it's true.
Jeannie, let's turn to you to close out this conversation, this part of the conversation about, turning data analytics into actionable intelligence. Behavioral intelligence meets customer loyalty. How do you get that done?
Well, I think, to reiterate some of what's already been said here, we have to really go back again to what is the goal? Why are we measuring what we're measuring? And then what are we doing about it? And one of the things that I think has happened is when we first talked about customer experience 20 years ago, and I was there, it was kind of this nice idea, right? Everybody was like, yeah, let's be nice to customers and all these great things are going to happen, but it didn't have a lot of structure. So then there was this big pendulum swing to, okay, it's all about the data. It's all about collecting feedback. It's all about this. But there was all this emphasis on collection and not much else. And so people were having these reports on numbers that weren't really meaningful, that weren't connected to overall strategy and goals. And so I think now we're kind of going back to let's put this all together. And that's where I think we can really build loyalty. And again, loyalty is different for different people. What drives you to be loyal is going to be different than what drives me. And it might be your stage of life, right? When you have little kids and you're going through the drive-through, that's one experience. But maybe you're, later on, you want to work in the McDonald's. You love the Wi-Fi at McDonald's or whatever it is. So I think we also have to make sure that we are just making sure we're really looking at customer journeys in this holistic way to really understand what drives loyalty, and making sure that we are. And there was a comment in the chat about, let's make sure we're only collecting what matters too, because when we ask for all this stuff that we just are curious about, that's wasting a lot of time for everybody, including our customers too. So I think we just have to get better at defining our goals and defining what success really looks like, and then back up from there and use all of these triggers, because that's how we can be predictive and proactive with our customers and make sure that we are getting in front of what they're about to complain about, right? That's where this comes into play. That will make somebody say, oh my gosh, you solved my problem before I even had it. That will drive loyalty, things like that. So I think prioritization, understanding the goals, and defining success are super important in this moment in time right now.
All right, topic 4, to close things out before we get to a few questions at the end. There are so many good questions and answers already happening actually in the chat. So they're doing our jobs for us. Thank you very much for being so active in there. Let's talk productivity, shall we? So Tom, dynamic data is often seen as a driver of innovation. So are you seeing it, sort of unlocking creativity and enabling organizations to adapt faster? Is good data leading to good innovation?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially a real-time crystal ball. We used to have to look at the past. I mean, how many times have we gone and said, based on my Q2 2023 analysis, and it's like, no, what happened yesterday? I feel like that's the key for us to be able to adapt in real time, which I think is what it takes to be successful today. I think you can do very creative things. Like, it's really much, you can create this idea of digital twins, right? An audience that can match a real audience, and test an email campaign before you have to push send on an email to 50,000 people. You couldn't do that 10 years ago. A/B testing was incredibly reliant on content creation. We can now automate content creation. I find lots of marketers are almost embarrassed that they use AI, which is the wrong way to think about it. We can all be much more effective in our job, which is to build our brand, to help our companies grow faster. And dynamic data is the key to making that happen, especially when paired with AI. So I don't think that AI is going to replace marketers. I think marketers who don't use AI are going to get replaced. I think dynamic data is the key to making AI successful. And I think, honestly, we're in the golden age of marketing right now. And I couldn't be more excited about what I see in front of me. I'm scared about not moving fast enough. Like, for me and my team, I always worry, am I doing enough?
Totally get that. Oh, we got to be faster. We got to be faster. We're behind. Look at that. Look at what that organization is doing.
Yeah.
It happens. It's almost an illness. Sean, what productivity gains have you observed, from organizations leveraging behavioral intelligence?
Well, I'm actually going to switch gears on answering this question a little bit, because Tom just mentioned faster. We got to be ready for change faster, et cetera. And there's some studies that have been done that in how we do business, how we work, et cetera, obviously has a rate of change. And back in the 80s, it was about once a decade, 80s and prior, maybe once a decade, you'd see major shifts in how you do things. In the 90s, twice per decade. The 2000s, 3 times per decade, was the average of change. The 2010s, we hit once per year. So far in 2024 metrics, but 2025, we're seeing 2 to 3 different changes each year in how we do business. The expectation is by 2027, we could see a monthly shift in how work gets done. So the key is, when you think about innovation, you're using data to innovate. But what you don't want to do is don't use what technology does today as your source for what you want to innovate on. The focus needs to really be almost agnostic initially of the technology, understanding the experience and the data that it provides you, but then think crazily, out of the box. How would we do things if it was a perfect world? Because guess what? If it's not available today, it might be next year, that kind of capability. And so you really, companies and businesses and individuals have to really be thinking more about the art of the possible. What do we want to accomplish? And what's the purpose of that? And then using the data as that source, and then the technology of and executing on that strategy will become available or change or modify. But we have to be prepared. We are in a time of just massive amounts of changes, and we got to be ready for it.
That was amazing, Sean. And you'd be good in a political debate too, because I'm going to answer this a different way. I love it. Nice pivot to bring home a good point. I absolutely love it. All right, let's move on to Jeannie. So what Jeannie, we talk a lot about solving customer problems and this is bad, let's fix it, quick fixes, long-term fixes. But how does behavioral intelligence drive innovation, like true innovation, like you're actually using that data to innovate?
Yeah, we actually call this experiential innovation in our framework, and we do something with our clients that I love that's called Disruptor Day, where we literally say, okay, if we were the industry disruptor, how would we treat our customers? What would we do? Because I like to think about it as there's somebody right now today who is trying to disrupt your industry right now. And so if you are not trying to disrupt your own industry and through experience, because the big disruptions of the last decade have all been experience driven. And so if you are not thinking that way, then you are already behind in so many ways. But when we think about, how do we really stay in front of that with the data and the intelligence that we have, again, it comes back to what are the questions you're asking? What are the ways that you're looking at the data? I have sometimes said too, data's great, but it's always late. It's always about the past. And so when you're thinking about what you're looking for, you can lean into AI for some of the predictive analytics. Well, if 80% of the people have made this choice, that tells us something. What are they going to choose tomorrow? How can we predict what they're going to choose tomorrow? And how can we actually innovate the experience around that? And I think one of the biggest challenges I see is that a lot of organizations, they are kind of handcuffed with technology or with the way their organization is structured or all these different things. But there's always a workaround when it comes to customer experience. And that's why, I named my company Experience Investigators, because I think it's so fascinating that we have to dig in and be so curious about everything. And I think that is part of the value that CX leaders can bring, is that curiosity about, okay, maybe we can't change our technology tomorrow. Maybe we don't have all the data points we want. But what can we do when we know that there's this point in the process, in the journey, that customers don't like, that we're not meeting expectations, and that we are falling behind? We can do something there. And so I think that's where, when we talk about innovation, it comes in both small and big ways. And so I would just encourage everybody, don't be afraid of those small workarounds. Don't be afraid of asking the harder questions, because that's what will help you innovate with the material and the data and the behavioral intelligence that you have.
Michael, innovation and behavioral intelligence, what are you seeing from Medallia's standpoint?
Well, Tom certainly hit it in terms of the golden age of marketing, right? So we had one customer report to us in terms of generative content creation and helping them managing experiences that, yes, they happened, but they still need responding and acting on. This customer saved 80% of the time than they would have in the past. So we're talking about tens of thousands of employees, potentially across thousands of locations. So, upon rolling something like that out, we're talking about saving years worth of time in terms of what we can do to drive change. So I know generative content is one of all of our favorite examples of this past year, but we're seeing a lot more, right? There's a lot of search use cases. And I think Jeannie's hitting on some of that where, I'm just going to surface up for you the opportunity here. And if we think about, where that can go to next, Tom hit on, digital twins, and Jeannie talked a little bit about models that are happening outside of this process. What happens next? Well, look, it frees up the creative thinking that should have always been happening, but so many organizations and employees just don't have the opportunity to do if they're burdened by processes that could be automated. And I think Tofi mentioned it, like the level of quality, the bar can just be automatically raised for all because AI is finally there to help you. So if that's done, that gives you time back. And I know we all talk about cost reductions and time saves, and that's great, but we don't talk enough about growth, revenue growth, cross-sell, upsell, really just deepening engagement, product adoption and engagement. There's a lot of positive things that can happen there. So the time given back to employees can free up some of that creative thinking, which then allows the companies to do what's next. Maybe do some synthetic data creation and simulation, either via a digital twin of a person or a digital twin of an environment, and actually simulating what would happen if they follow through on the behavioral activity and feedback-based insights that they collectively have been able to organize, and then actually proactively do it before anyone else says this is a huge issue. So I think that, we're just chipping away, and there's tons of different organizations up to this right now in the space separately, not many bringing it all together. And that's where, a company like a McDonald's that I'm sure has some different thoughts on this, bringing that all together, there's just a great opportunity.
And Toppy, with that, good segue. Let's close this part of the conversation out. Employee experience, innovation, behavioral data. Where do you see those dynamics going? As we move along here in 2025.
And I'm just talking purely from a speculative perspective here, based on everything I'm hearing and possibly some of the things that I know we're also working on. With data, the ability to innovate, you can test and fail quickly. I think that's a very important part when it comes to innovation, and not just like huge product innovation, but even ways of working innovation, which is really the space that I mainly operate within. The quicker you can have more relevant and accurate data, so we get results, we get that feedback quicker, smarter, more efficient, the quicker you're able to test, fail. And it's not necessarily fail, it feels more like play. So that's how I see the two mirroring together. And I'm thinking of some examples of some of the work that my team does. When we can see the impact of an intervention in a more rapid and timely manner, we're able to kind of pivot, change, and adjust our path forward in a more timely manner as well.
All right. Well, that was the moderator job of a lifetime, trying to fit all you guys in with all these insights. We can certainly do 5 individual shows with all of you for sure. Tom and I, that would be an interesting one. New England meets New England. But let's move on to you being the audience. And I'm telling you right now, I mean, there are some amazing insights, answers, questions, comments that are happening in that chat. We can't thank you enough. I mean, I've learned, no offense to the panelists, I've learned a lot from them too. But let's go into some of these questions in the last few minutes here. We only got like 5 minutes or so. So we'll go a little over the top of the hour. Michael, I'll start with you. I think you might want to come in on this one. This question is, what do folks use to capture and analyze data to improve CX? You might have some thoughts there.
Might have some thoughts. I mean, it's in 2025, you need to lead with mobile, social, right? If we're thinking about younger demographics, we need to talk about different kind of engagement that happens through those channels. That's your next base to grow with. So you have to make sure you're listening to them. And if you think about it now, 1 billion, no, sorry, not 1 billion. I think it's like 5 or 6 billion active mobile internet connected users. It's now surpassed those who are accessing your brand's website or mobile website. So mobile's the future because it's a computer on the go that can also interact with the physical environment. So you want to use different collection mechanisms, combination of feedback, behavioral analytics, product analytics. You want to connect that with CRMs. You, of course, want to connect that with customer data platforms, journey orchestration products. Just remember, right? It's one customer that engages across your entire brand. So you have to be able to stitch that together with identity solutions, customer management solutions. And then you want, ideally, right, an experience management platform to help make sense of this all and connect with your activity systems. So the Salesforces, the ServiceNows, the Adobes, whichever ones are the right ones for you. So naturally, we do have a lot of solutions at Medallia to help. If we don't have it, we know how to play with that data. We likely have a technology partner that has it. So we're happy to help however we can.
Thanks for that question, and thanks for the answer, Michael. Let's go to Sean on this one. What are your thoughts on how the latest AI trends might be able to leapfrog poor or incomplete product, service, customer behavior taxonomies within an organization? I know you were using sticky notes, Sean, but there is this AI thing as well that you might have played with as well, in addition to that paper-based method of customer journey. So how much AI creativity is available to conjure what is happening that we may not have yet defined in our own data?
Yeah, I mean, first off, AI, those two letters are probably some of the more misunderstood letters out there when put together on what is it, because it's so many different things in so many different ways. I think scale is really where AI is driving, this. I mean, those of us who've been doing this for a couple of decades, we have the old school of manual correlation and things of that nature. But the reality is, in today's day, there are individual tools that using AI that can expedite your results. So Jeannie talked about the agent support in real time, agent coaching, even agent quality. Those are all things that are happening. And then you've got online, AI that's really helping navigate, consumers and providing new options and things like that within the flow that they were already embraced in. I think the biggest opportunity though with AI is bridging those gaps. And, I know I'm working with some companies that really focus on that deep journey analytics, bringing all those together into a single environment, using AI to then translate that into real-time findings. And that's where we all almost can become data scientists, because the tools can enable us to really understand what's happening across all these different experiences at scale and find those nuggets, those truths that we may otherwise miss. I like to say that most call centers that I work with, for instance, they're working on these top call drivers, but using data and analytics and AI, we can show them, well, actually your biggest churn drivers are not your top call drivers. These other random things that happen kind of under the surface. They're the rocks in the journey, reference to my book, the rocks in the journey that get in the way, cause rapids, and make that experience poor. And it's that AI that's now bringing that to the surface so much easier than ever before.
All right. Well, this has been a lively discussion in the panel and in the chat. So this has been amazing. Thank you for all those insights, helping me shape some ideas for story ideas and video ideas. And Amy Sessions was in the chat too, by the way. She's going to be on interviewing us about our customer support team at a city. It's going to be a lot of fun, so stay tuned for that. But Sean, Jeannie, Toppy, Michael, Tom, can't thank you enough for this conversation. Can't thank Medallia enough for being a great partner with CMS Wire and a sponsor for this discussion. Stay tuned for all kinds of follow-up materials. And don't forget about Medallia's Experience Conference next month. Jeannie and I and Michael will be out there to say hi, so join us there. And thank you for tuning into this webinar. Connect with us on LinkedIn too. I really want to keep this conversation going with all of us. So thanks, everybody. Bye to the panelists. Bye to the listeners. We certainly appreciate your time today and insights. We'll talk soon.
Great job, Dom.
Thanks, Dom. Thanks, team.
Bye-bye.